Welcome to Layer the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, my 5 favorite rock and metal drummers. Kind of surprised I haven't made this video yet. In fact, I went back and looked through my videos and I thought, did I make a video on my 5 favorite drummers yet? Apparently I haven't, so here we are. I've mentioned before that I'm a bass player. So I'm very in tune to the rhythm section, and I've always enjoyed listening to the drums, and I've always enjoyed great drummers. I think there'll be some surprises on my list here because I leave out some pretty big names here. I'll say that I tend to lean towards drummers who are more feel drummers rather than very technical drummers. So if there's people out there who are drummers, they're going to probably say, how in the world could you leave off, some of the people that I'm going to leave off on my list. But okay, here we go. So speaking of field drummers, this is a good example of one of those. My number 5 is from Cheap Trick, Mr. Bunny Carlos. You can see him on the back there. I've always loved his drumming. He's a great example of a guy that's all about feel. He has almost like a swing to his playing. It reminds me of Charlie Watts or Phil Rudd from AC/DC, and maybe it's because I'm a huge AC/DC fan. And to me, that's kind of the secret formula of AC/DC is that groove and the swing that they have. And I hear that in Bunny Carlos. I remember I saw Cheap Trick live, and they started their show with Ain't That a Shame. And they started the show with a drum solo, basically. Bunny just came up on stage by himself. He was just playing his kick drum. Then he was playing all these like super cool fills. And then eventually they went into the song. Man, I just loved it. I just stood right where I could see him. I just love his look, the sort of laid back. He looks like an accountant or something, you know what I mean? He just wears like a white shirt and the mustache and everything, and the glasses and the cigarette dangling out of his mouth. I just always thought he had a fantastic feel, and he's always been one of my favorite drummers. Okay, number 4 for me is Dave Lombardo from Slayer. Dave, to me, is like the ultimate drummer in this type of thrash or death metal or that like technical kind of drumming, because he has an incredible amount of technique, yet he drives the songs along. He's very creative, like in his drum fills, and he's just such a huge part of the Slayer sound and whenever I hear him play with anybody else, whether he's just like jamming with a group or something, it automatically makes it sound like Slayer because he's such a huge part of that sound, and his drum fills are so cool, and he's just not technical and just playing fast. I mean, he can do all that, but he just has a great feel, and the sound of his drums also, he's one of these guys that I can recognize the sound of his drums, which is kind of tricky to do when it comes to drums. Guitar players, it's a little easier for them to carve out their own sound. It's sort of like bass players. It's sometimes hard for bass players to have their own unique sound, but for me, Dave Lombardo does. And the mark of a great musician for me is this: they elevate any situation that they're in, any band that they're in. And no matter what situation or band that they're in, you can tell that it's them. And that's that for Dave Lombardo. All right, number 3 for me is from the Police, Stuart Copeland. I'm surprised I haven't done any videos on the Police because I kind of felt like maybe they're too far out of the world of hard rock and heavy metal, which I mostly talk about. But I'm a huge Police fan. I love Sting's songwriting, his voice. I even like his bass playing, but Stuart Copeland's drumming, I just love. I can listen to the Police and just focus in on Stuart's drumming. And it's so interesting. He's the king of doing interesting things on his hi-hat. He very rarely doesn't just play like straight things on his hi. And even if he is playing kind of a straight beat, he sort of just plays his hi-hat differently than a lot of drummers. And he does all these like syncopated and like backbeat type of things. He's a very jazzy like feel to the way he plays, but he's just able to play all of these sort of syncopations. And he's another guy that has a totally unique sound, in my opinion, that when I can pick him out, anywhere, and he's a huge part of the sound of the Police for me, especially the work that he just sort of does on the cymbals and the hi-hat and everything. I just love it, and I think he's so interesting. I love listening to the Police, and I can just listen to his drums and find it really, really engaging. Okay, number 2 for me, Vinny Appice, Black Sabbath, the different projects that he's been in. I say this all the time about Vinny, he is the king of playing a simple beat, but making it sound like he owns it. He could just play a bass, snare, bass, and it's so heavy. It so much sounds like him. His drums have a very unique sound that I can pick out from anywhere. And he just has a certain pocket or feel or groove or something that is really all his own. And he's able to play a slow pattern and make it sound very, very interesting, like with the Dio band. Like I think about stuff on like Angry Machines and Strange Highways, where he's just playing these simple beats, but they're just so powerful and so there. He's also the king of slow drum fills, meaning like he can play really fast like things around the kit, but when he does, he's like go 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 go. Those type of like fills, they just sound absolutely monstrous. Martin Popoff has, I don't remember what the exact quote is, but he describes Vinny's drum fills like a giant throwing boulders, and I think that's a perfect description, because it's so huge and it's so big sounding, and he's just so great at doing some really simple thing but making it sound like super cool. I love his playing, man. It's so powerful, it's so great. That's why he comes in at number 2 for me. And my number 1 has always been Mr. John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, and I have Led Zeppelin 2 here because of Moby Dick. Bonham for me is a guy, the perfect blend of feel and technique. He has this really powerful drumming style. He has this amazing groove to his playing. Think of like Moby Dick, that main riff there, or Fool in the Rain, like Good Times, Bad Times, fills and everything that he does. He has a fantastic feel, and he has this uncanny ability of being able to, musicians and drummers will use this expression of being behind the beat or ahead of the beat, meaning he's like, can push it so it feels like it's driving forward, like the Immigrant Song, or he can play really laid back and make it swing and groove, like in Fool in the Rain. He's just the king of being able to do that in a song within a song. And I swear that I even hear him being able to do that where it sounds like his hi-hat is kind of laid back, a little bit behind the beat, but his bass and his snare are pushing it forward. It's almost like he's the only drummer that I hear that seems to be able to, that can do that at the same time he's laid back and ahead of the beat. I don't know, it's like impossible for me to describe, but he's such a unique another drummer that he's a real critical part of the Led Zeppelin sound. I mean, so much so that when he passed away, the band full, that they just knew that they couldn't replace him. He has tons of technique, but he uses it. It always fits the song. His drum parts, think of his drum part in like Black Dog, when that main riff is happening. He's got this sort of reverse thing where the snare and bass drum are reversed, and he just has all these really creative drum parts that are just so interesting. He's always been my favorite drummer. He's another guy that I can listen to Led Zeppelin and just lock in on the drums and just be floored by, Achilles' Last Stand, the way he just has so much power to his sound. And I think about, like in the song Remains the Same movie, you're seeing him doing like all those big drum fills and everything, and the way he's playing off with Jimmy Page and the rest of the band is just absolutely fantastic. So my easy number one for me is John Bonham. All right, there you go. There's my 5 favorite hard rock and heavy metal drummers. Let me know what you think of my picks. Let me know who some of your favorite hard rock and heavy metal drummers are. Sure you hit like and subscribe. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.